So, first of all, thank you for letting me be here and having this conversation with you. But I was born in Pasadena in 1962, and I tell people that I'm actually a true Pasadenian because I was born in a hospital on Fair Oaks. And most people don't know that there was a hospital on Fair Oaks at Tremont. It was the Pasadena Community Hospital. And it was an emergency hospital, so that's where I was born, and now it's the health department. And so people kind of look at that and go, wow, you were born on Fair Oaks. I go, yep, born on Fair Oaks in Tremont. So I went through all the school system here in Pasadena. I actually started at Franklin Elementary School in Altadena because we lived up in Altadena on the west side. So I went to Franklin for elementary school, then got bused when busing was in Pasadena, got bused out to Field Elementary School. So I went from the extreme west side to the extreme east side, and then went to McKinley for middle school. I think we called it junior high at that time, and then graduated from John Muir. When I was a young kid, the way I got into law enforcement was we were just hanging out on the street corner with nothing to do. This was in 1970, I think it was 75 or 76. And we were riding our little dirt bikes at the time. And there were some guys who moved in from Los Angeles that moved into our neighborhood. And they said, hey, does the police department have a program that helps kids around here? They take them camping, they take them bowling, and we didn't know. So we went home and asked our parents, and we ended up calling the Altadena Sheriff's Department, and they said they had an Explorer program. And then we called Pasadena Police Department, and they said they had an Explorer program. And their Explorer program did just that. It took kids to different places, got them out, and got them a chance to see probably places that they never would have seen had they not been police explorers. And so at 15 years old, I joined the Pasadena Police Explorers, and I guess I didn't know anything else to do, so I just stayed. Yeah, it still exists. There are a number of kids who really kind of get a chance to test out law enforcement to see if it's something that they would like to do. And if they do, they stay on from Explorers, which is a volunteer program, and then they can get hired as a police cadet. And then at 21, if they want to be a police officer, they can get hired at that point.
Oh, okay.
So that was my route. So now I'm actually the deputy chief of police. So I'm right under the chief. So my job is kind of the day-to-day operations of the department. I have really have admin under me, so my biggest job is to make sure that we hire people, and in some cases I have to mete out discipline. So when the officers do something wrong, I write the reports, submit them to the chief, and he makes the final decision with respect to discipline. But I have admin, which is my biggest job. Yeah, so the Pasadena Altadena Reintegration Council is something that I helped start basically back in 2007. I don't know if a lot of people know, but there was a move to reduce the prison population in California. There was a decision called the Coleman-Plata decision where some inmates had sued the state of California for overcrowdedness, for the conditions in the prison system, and these guys actually won. And so it caused for the state of California to reduce the size of the prison population. And so being a police officer and growing up in Pasadena, I realized that some of the people that I had put in jail, because I was a gang guy, I was a drug guy, I worked narcotics, I worked those things, and coming from a city from which you grow up, you take a lot of your friends to jail.
Yeah.
And so some of them had gone to jail for long periods of time. And I realized that if they were going to let people out early, maybe these people can change their lives. So I was in a conference in Oakland in 2007 as part of the National Organization of Black Law Enforcement Executives. And there was a chief by the name of Ron Davis who was talking about reintegration and about a program that they had in East Palo Alto, California. And the chief was up there talking, and the person who was talking next to him was a guy that had been in prison for 19 years. And this man looked pretty ominous. He was tall, he was bald, had a long handlebar mustache, but he was talking about his time in Oakland and East Palo Alto and all the things that he had done. And he realized too that people can change their lives if you give them a chance. So he and the chief started a program called Free at Last. And it really basically allows people when they come home to help them get the resources that they need to get back on track. And here I am sitting in this conference in Oakland thinking about this Coleman-Plata decision, knowing that some of my friends are going to get out early. And I said, when they come home, if they've been in jail for all these years, how are they going to function? because I know it's hard. It was hard for me, even having a job. So I said, let me start a program that's similar to this one. So I asked Ron Davis, I said, Chief, can I take your program and bring it back to Pasadena? And he said, go ahead. He says, bring it to Pasadena. So I actually did that, and the guy who was in prison for 19 years and was talking next to him, his name was David Lewis. I asked David, I said, David, would you come down to Pasadena and would you help me start this program? And I remember he called me Lil Bruh. He said, Lil Bruh, he goes, I'm gonna help you. So about 6 months later, I brought David Lewis down to Pasadena. I held an informational session at Jackie Robinson Center. We had over 200 people show up to the informational session to talk about starting a program similar. And so hence, we have the Pasadena Outing and Reintegration Council here in Pasadena that has been going on in earnest since 2011 for about 4 years fully now. And we've been helping people get back on track. So, as I mentioned, a lot of folks have spent a lot of time in jail. And when they come home, maybe because of the conditions upon which they went to jail, they were in gangs or they were in drugs. And the family nucleus says, oh, here comes Jimmy. Jimmy's coming home, and oh, Jimmy, you can't come back here because you caused too many problems. But Jimmy has nowhere to go. So sometimes we find Jimmy being homeless on the streets. Jimmy can't get anything to eat. Jimmy doesn't have any clothing. Jimmy doesn't have any connectivity to society. So this program, we actually go out and we find people and say to them, if you are formerly incarcerated, come to the Pasadena Outing and Reintegration Council. We will help you find somewhere to live. If you need clothing, we will give you clothing. If you need shelter, we'll try to find shelter for you. We have over 50 service providers that come every month and offer services to this population. I'll tell you what's so great about it. When I first started the program, I would interview formerly incarcerated men and women at the Pasadena Parole Office, and I would ask them, what is it that you need? And they would tell me stuff like, well, Mr. Qualls, I need boxers. Yeah. I mean, underwear? They're like, yeah. I said, oh, okay, no problem. They said, hey, I need shoes. Some of them would tell me I need glasses. Wow. And I said, well, if you've been in prison for all those years, your eyesight goes bad. So I said, okay, well, tell me some other things. So we interviewed over 30 people that were formerly incarcerated. And it all boiled down to the basic necessities of life. Wow. They said, I just need some hand sanitizer, some toothpaste, toothbrush, just the things to get me over. So what I did is I went to Target on Colorado Boulevard, and I told the managers at Target, look, I'm starting this program. If you could just give me some of these things, I'm going to give them to the formerly incarcerated. And we've been giving out these hygiene kits, what they call them, and if you're in custody, it's called fish kits. But we've been giving out fish kits at our reintegration fairs for the last 4 years. And we've given over 1,000 fish kits to people who need them. The ironic thing is, I never thought that people were going to come to the police department to get them. So I'm sitting in my office some days and someone will come down and say, is Mr. Qualls here? Or I'm here to get a fish kit. So a person who was formerly incarcerated can come down to the Pasadena Police Department and get a fish kit. And we give it to them at the front desk 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Those are some of the services that we give. There are incentives for employers to hire. And I'll tell you, that's the hard part, though, because I think that a lot of the employment community have not gotten over the stereotype of the formerly incarcerated. There has to be a trust issue there. And I don't think people really have understood that a good number of the people who have committed crimes and gone to jail, they're our family members. They're your brother, your sister, your uncle, your aunt. They're good people who made a bad decision. And so we are getting some people employed. If you don't mind, I'll tell you a great story. Yeah. I was actually working with a group of folks to hire formerly incarcerated at recycling centers. Oh. And so we were going to recycling centers in Los Angeles to see if we could, get them to hire some of the formerly incarcerated. And I'm down in a recycling center in Los Angeles. Now, I'm in my uniform, Pasadena Police Department, but I'm in this recycling center in Los Angeles. As I'm walking through the recycling center getting a tour, this young girl comes up to me and she goes, oh, Mr. Qualls, how are you? Do you remember me? And I go, no, I'm sorry, I don't. She goes, I came to your program. I'm now working here. Awesome. And she was working there, and I have a picture on my phone where she and we took a picture together. So this program, folks that do attend, in some cases they get hired. I'm walking down on my lunch break, down to, I was going to the hamburger stand at the Paseo Islands. As I'm walking down the street, I see this young man sitting on the steps right below the yard house. And he says to me, he's on the phone, he says, "Mr. Qualls, how you doing?" And he had tats on, and white guy. And I said, "Oh, hey, good, how are you?" He goes, "You don't remember me, huh?" I go, "No, sir, I don't remember you." He goes, "I came to your program." He says, "I work here as a dishwasher. I got a job here at the yard house." He goes, "When I leave here, I'm going down to Buffalo Wild Wings. I work there too."
Awesome.
So he got 2 jobs. So we try to find jobs for our population. I wish that other people would take a chance, because most of these people are good and they do a great job when they go to work. As for a good portion of their lives while they were formerly incarcerated, when they were in prison, they were told when to get up, when to eat, when to go to bed. Most of the decisions were not made for them. So we try to allow them to make their own decisions, be part of the change, be part of the solution.
Right.
And I will tell you, about 1,100 that have come through the program have made some significant changes in their lives. Right, so we have a number of community outreach workers, and most of these folks are formerly incarcerated. So they actually go out into the community. They will go to the parks, and they just start talking to men and women that are in the park saying, "Hey, listen, we've got this great program. If you meet this criteria, if you're formerly incarcerated, you can come." We have been speaking at churches and at community groups. One of the first places I went when I started this program was I went to the African American church, because I knew that there were mothers there were grandmothers there who had children that were in custody and were going to be coming home, and they were at a loss for what they were going to say to them to help them get their lives back. And so we went to the black church. I spoke at over 30 churches in Pasadena, black and non-black, talking about this program so that they would know. The program meets the 3rd Thursday of every month, and one of my biggest partners is Lake Avenue Church. Lake Avenue Church has really stepped up. They allow us to use a building that they own at 500 East Villa. It's right on the corner of Villa and Oakland. And the 3rd Thursday of every month, we have a resource fair there. You even get lunch provided. We have door prizes so that when people come in, they can actually leave with great information, and they can leave with a door prize. We have a collaboration with the Pasadena Health Department, and so we do AIDS testing. HIV testing we do at the resource fairs. So if you get tested, we give you a gift card so that you can go get ice cream and a sandwich at a local vendor. And so we have a lot of things that are going there. Again, it's 500 East Villa at Oakland and Villa, and it starts at 12 noon, and anybody can come. Our Thanksgiving meeting, we normally have a turkey dinner, or turkey lunch I should say, because it's at 12 noon. But we have folks who bring turkey, dressing, and all the fixings to go along with it, because we know that a lot of times formerly incarcerated have missed that. Yeah. And so they can come for Thanksgiving and they can get that meal. At Christmas, we give away toys. We give away toys. One year we gave away Christmas trees because we wanted the formerly incarcerated to come to the meeting, get a Christmas tree, and take it home. Toys, I tell the guys that come, because predominantly it's men, but there are some ladies, I tell them at Christmas, we give 2 toys to each person that comes. And I tell the men, listen, take the toy home and give it to your son or daughter. You don't have to tell them where you got it from. Right. You give it to them. Don't tell them, oh, I went to the parole program. I said, what I need you to do is reconnect with your son or daughter. If I can get your relationship built together again, then you're going to want to stay home. And your child is wanting you to stay at home. So we do that to bring some connectivity to the mother and the father. So most of the stuff that we get now, that's a great question. Most of the stuff, I used to hustle toothpaste and toothbrushes. Yeah. Now, people drop it off at the police department. They will call me and say, Mr. Qualls, I got this. And they'll either bring it or I'll go pick it up. For Christmas, a softball league in Pasadena, as part of the registration, you have to bring a toy. So this softball league brings me 10 bags of toys every Christmas that we give away. So I really don't ask for anything. It's all given, either through the church or some community group that knows of the work that we're doing. So a business can give to us, and they could give to the Flint Ridge Center. They could call me at the police department, and we could certainly take those items. Well, money is always good. Yeah. Money is always good. I'll tell you where we're really Well, just getting on the Christmas event, toys would be great because, again, we're trying to reestablish a relationship between the formerly incarcerated and their children because we believe that goes a long way. Money is good because it helps us further the program that we have. I've continually sought money for this program. I talk to senators, I talk to congressmen, and I tell them of the great work that we do. And so I'm still looking for some funding. There are nonprofits out there that are also hurting because the nonprofit funding streams are drying up. So everybody's looking for the same money in the same pot.
Right.
But hopefully there's going to be somebody out there who has a lot of money, who said, hey, I like what this guy is doing, I like what the program is doing, and they will fund us fully, and we don't have to worry about getting money from anywhere else. Now, you ask about some of the things that are still lacking. One of the things that we're trying to move forward on is housing. Because as I told you, when a person's been incarcerated for 10, 15 years, maybe mom has passed on or grandma has passed on or that house that they grew up in is no longer there, so they come home with nowhere to stay. That is one of our largest challenges, is finding affordable housing for this population. There's a church that I'm working with here in town that has a house, and so we're trying to get that house so that we can allow people to stay there. But housing is our biggest challenge, because I think that if someone has a place to live, then they can talk about getting a job, they can talk about getting their life together. But you've got to have somewhere that you got to live that's stable. So housing is my biggest challenge. We need manpower. Volunteers come. Most churches come to volunteer, but certainly new faces are always good. New faces are always good. We usually see the same people each month, which is great. But when someone else comes and says, hey, I heard about your program and I would like to volunteer, that sends hope to the other people that come, because some of these people come back every month because they know we're there. But to see someone else who said, oh wow, I grew up down the street from you, I remember you, let me help you, let me serve you, that's what we should be doing. So volunteers are always good.
Awesome. I'm gonna volunteer.
I think that that the community of Pasadena has learned from some of the issues that others have gone through. I call it the evaporation of my generation. When I came on the police department in the 80s, cocaine was big. And there were people who were here that were friends of mine, and then all of a sudden they were gone. Just gone. They were arrested and gone for 10, 12, 15, 20 years. And I think that the younger generation was a victim of that, because some of them were children of that generation.
Yes.
And I think that it didn't allow for them to really get their legs under them and to get the start that we should have provided. But I think for the most part, we're doing much better. I think we're going to continue to be much better. I think one of the things is if we can reunite our community with those pillars who have left and come back and be those great strong men and great strong women, then we can make our community great again. And those young kids will learn from us. I think that this community was one of the closest black communities in the state of California. Some years ago, I met a man who was a shoe shine man. This was actually in San Dimas. And I was going to get my car washed, and I met him, and he eventually started shining my shoes. And he told me the history of Pasadena, and that a lot of people, when folks migrated west, migrated to Long Beach, and they migrated to these towns where there was work. And in Long Beach, there was a port. Right. And so men could find work on the port. And he said that when people made it, they moved north. So they moved from Long Beach straight north into Pasadena. And if you lived in Pasadena, you were somebody. You had it going on, as he told me. And he said Pasadena was a great city. And I think that the way that we make that great again is we have to understand our history. We must understand our past. And I think that the strong influence of education and business goes a long way toward changing our community. And I think that's what we have to really get back to. Knowing our history, getting our education, and getting really our society, our community tied to each other again.